Hey guys, as any long-term subscribers know, the Lady K channel got its start as sort of a regular sailboat cruising channel as I took Lady K down from the Great Lakes toward the south.
How's it taste?
Tastes like salt.
Oh yeah?
Got our first drag race to the finish. There's a cat on that tack and a mono on that tack.
Which means they're going to cross right in front of each other.
But I don't feel like talking.
That'll be good fiction. Hey guys, we are reaching the end of Lake Oneida. But for the last year, it's sort of become something different. What's the one brand, the one single only brand that is the very definition of a blue water boat? This week on Everything You Need to Know. This week on Everything You Need to Know.
On Everything You Need to Know. This week on Everything You Need to Know, we're talking about Albin.
What if a surfer made a sailboat? The new flavor has been more informational, more boat history, more boat review, and to be honest, I really enjoy doing it, and I think the sailing world needs more informational channels. When I first got the idea of sailing away into the sunset, it took me years to research everything. So if my research can help my fellow sailors maybe choose a boat or choose a destination, I'm more than happy to do it. And if I can help someone avoid the mistakes that I made, all the better. Will there be sailing again on Lady K Sailing? Yes, absolutely, but it's winter here right now. Also, it's December 23rd, so it's Christmas. So Merry Christmas to everybody out there in sailing land. This episode's going to be a little bit more personal than my usual sort of objective review of boats that I've been on a few times, not boats that I've owned. With Christmas, I want to talk about a boat that is near and dear to my heart and do a review about it, maybe a short one, because I have spent a lot more time researching it than I have just about any other boat except maybe my own. It's a boat that my cruising future will very likely revolve around. Now, I definitely still have a lot of cruising miles left in my future. I have one very big plan that is sort of years in the making, but I want to do it on something that basically sums up everything I've learned about cruising and sailing and sailboats in general, something that checks every single box for me, knowing what I know now, having done it on a different boat, and those are a lot of boxes to check. This week on Everything You Need to Know, we're talking about my personal dream boat. If you watch the episode on the cruising boat not to buy, that you can watch by clicking the link up top, you'll know there were a lot of things about Lady K that left a lot of room for improvement. The size of the boat, the speed, the IOR hull, the tankage, sleeping arrangements, there's a long list. It just wasn't really all that well suited for the job. So what is more well suited? Well, there are two kings of the crown down in the islands. First, there's the 40-something foot catamarans, typically a lagoon or a leopard. These are just about the most popular boat down there at this point, whether you like them or not. But it's for good reason. I just don't think I'm a cat person, though. I mean, all that space and comfort aside, a catamaran just isn't my style. So that leaves monohulls, and anywhere you go down there, you'll always see one monohull in particular. It's a blend between a reasonable price that I can actually afford within my lifetime and everything you need to safely and comfortably go cruising for year after year after year if you have that kind of a long-term cruising goal like I do. You've heard me mention it before. My personal, realistic dream boat is the Oceanis 45. And yes, that's a Beneteau. Now, Beneteau has a few different series of boats. The base boats that are made for just sort of all-around sailing, and then they have the first series of boat. The first are the go-fast boats, which I do really love. They're the racier ones. But also they have a cruising series aimed specifically at long-term cruisers, and those are the Oceanis boats. Now, disclaimer out of the way, I am not a Beneteau fanboy, not by a long shot. As a sailor, I do love the big, heavy double enders, catch rig, full keel. But for my life plans, I just don't need one of those. I need a cruiser. I want to maximize comfort, safety, speed, Most importantly, I want to maximize quality of life, and that's something I'm going to talk a lot about today. But it all has to be at a price that I can make work in the next 5 years. And speaking of price, Lady K Sailing is brought to you by patrons, people who give a couple of bucks an episode to make this channel possible. I want to give a big shout out to this week's newest patrons, my friends over on Sailing Oceanis and Mark C. Thank you guys so much. The Oceanis 45 hits every nail right on the head in my checklist, and right now they're just getting old enough that the first owners are starting to offload them, so the price is starting to come way down. The market's getting flooded. You can pick one up for less than 300 grand now, and I mean a good one. So why the 45? Let's start with what I said earlier, quality of life. The 45, and this is its probably party piece, has an electronic fold-down transom. And believe me when I say, lifting groceries and water jugs and kids and animals over the stern rail from a dinghy that's bouncing around in a choppy anchorage is not something I ever want in my life again. As my relatives get older, the swim platform you can actually get up and down from is becoming more and more of a priority for me. Most of my family members can't even board Lady K from the water anymore, and that really limits how much we can actually enjoy that boat. Moving forward from the massive fold-down swim platform or transom, the 45 is just massive. You can have a dozen people over for dinner and drinks. No one's tripping over anyone else. I'm a fairly social person, and Lady K is usually the hangout boat. After a race or after a long day of sailing, I tend to have the best stereo and the coldest beer, and I kind of like it that way. Also, this massive cockpit lets the captain and possibly one member of the sailing crew stay right at the back of the cockpit behind the helms on a full beam bench, seating like you wouldn't believe. And you aren't climbing over people to work the primary winches. You can reach them from behind the helm. I could safely and efficiently operate the helm and run the jib all on my own, in my own space behind everyone. The main sheet's atop an arch, which that gets everything out of the way of the cockpit. So the main trimmer could actually operate the mainsail right up at the companionway underneath the arch, just ahead of all your guests, right by the companionway hatch. So when you have kids or guests on board, it just makes so much more sense. The 45 came with, and this is stuff I don't care all that much about, but it came with a few different cabin layouts, I think 4 different cabin layouts. Anything for sail by the moorings is going to be the 4 cabin, and that doesn't really work for me. I need one reasonably good master stateroom. So I'll be needing the 2 aft cabin version with the master stateroom up front. These have 2 heads. The back cabins and sort of the salon share 1 head. The master gets its own ensuite head, which should keep the first mate happy. I don't really have a lot to say about the insides of these boats because, if we're honest, it's basically the same as every other production boat. The woodwork is all basically from IKEA. The layouts are all basically the same. You get a galley, a fridge, a freezer, a dinette, a nav station. Great. I don't care. So where does the Beneteau outshine the competition, the similar boats, the Catalinas and the Hunters? For me, the Beneteau feels a lot wider, a lot fancier. The cockpit is leaps and bounds bigger. The livability quality of life day to day is leaps and bounds better. The twin helm lets me sit on the low side, where in racing I'm one of the captains that will sit on the low side right at the water, so that I can actually see the telltales on the jib. I want to race the boat every second that I'm on it, so I love the idea of a twin helm. And she can sail this boat. They just sail better than the Catalina and the Hunters. They feel so much faster and more well-behaved, more cutting edge somehow, and I love that feeling. I was the chase boat for filming at a regatta in the Bahamas a couple years ago, and I was in a rib, and the 45 is just an incredible boat to watch get put through her paces. It's impressive to watch it tack up through the wind, particularly. She tacks through, finds her footing on the new tack, seems to like to pitch over about 30 degrees, and then take off like a bat out of hell. Even in the rib I was in, I found it hard to stay within a good camera position of this boat after it tacked, without having to plane up the rib just to keep up with these things. Of course, like any cruising boat, it is not without its faults, however. For my needs, there's a big problem. It doesn't lend itself very well to 2 of my must-haves. My 45, when I buy it, will not be without at least 1,500 watts of solar, even more if I can swing it. And then the other thing is dinghy davits. Absolute dinghy davits, that's a must. Because of the fold-down transom, a set of davits that doubles as a full-width solar array is going to be a little bit tricky, but more than that, expensive and heavy. Now, some of the boats' 45s have made it work with massive hoops, which seem fine. I'm just not looking forward to building them. There are two other problems as well. You guys know I like my boats simple. Robust, but simple. And the Oceanis, while not infinitely complicated, is far from simple. As an example, why are there so many holes in the boat? I mal-adopted the single through hull with a manifold thing. Can't we do that? Lastly, it's a Beneteau, and I know I'm going to catch flack from a lot of you guys in the comments about it, so let's get it out of the way now. Yes, it's a production boat. Yes, there have been factory defects, but I think that's true with anything now. You can buy a newer production boat with issues, or a rock-solid older boat that has developed its own unique issues over the decades. I know the Oceanis is a bit more snooty, too. People tend to look a little bit negatively on it when they see it in the anchorage. It's a little bit too fancy, and especially for me. All in, though, I think it is a beautiful boat. I think it works extremely well for what I personally plan to use it for. Will I cross the Atlantic? Likely yes, but not a direct crossing. Down through the Caribbean, and then a carefully executed shorter crossing. So I don't really need an ML to do everything that people on those boats do. And I want more space. Now, obviously, it might not be the boat for you. It might not be the boat for a lot of people, but I'll tell you, it is an extremely popular boat down south with, very, very happy couples aboard it, sometimes with kids, sometimes with pets. It checks every box for me. It has its faults, but that's where I'm going, guys. That's the direction. That's it for this week, guys. Please have a very, very Merry Christmas. Spend lots of time with your families and be safe. I will see you in a week. Bye.